Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite chair, the one that's molded perfectly to you after years of quiet evenings. The house is still, maybe too still, and you catch yourself staring out of the window, wondering when life started feeling so small. Not bad, just small. Like the days are slipping through your fingers, each one a little less vibrant than the last. If you've ever felt that tug in your chest, that sense that something's missing, you're not alone. Growing older doesn't mean life has to shrink. But here's the thing no one tells you. It's not age that dims your spark. It's the tiny, quiet choices we make without even realizing it. Choices that seem harmless at first, but stack up over time, stealing your joy, your energy, even your sense of purpose. I'm here to talk about that today because I believe you deserve more than just getting by. You've lived a long, rich life, raised families, built careers, weathered storms most people can't imagine. You've earned the right to live fully, not fade into the background. But sometimes, without meaning to, we let life slip into a rhythm that feels safe, but isn't really living. In this video, we're going to uncover 9 fatal mistakes that can quietly ruin your life in old age. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. These aren't loud, obvious traps. They're subtle, sneaky habits and beliefs that creep in when we're not paying attention. And the good news? You can change them. Starting today, you can choose differently, reclaim your joy, and write a new chapter that feels alive. Let's dive into the first 3 mistakes and how to break free from them, one small, courageous step at a time. The first mistake is thinking your best days are behind you. It's a belief that settles in so quietly you barely notice it. Maybe it starts when you hit 60, 70, or 80, and the world stops asking you to show up the way it used to. Your kids are grown, your job's long gone, and suddenly people treat you like your story's already written. You hear it in the way they talk, softly, carefully, like you're fragile. And over time, you start to believe it. You tell yourself the big moments, love, adventure, discovery, they're for the young. But let me tell you something. That's a lie. Your best days aren't tied to a number on a calendar. They're tied to your willingness to keep showing up for life, to keep saying yes to yourself. I met a woman named Clara a few years back. At 82, she decided to join a book club at her local library. She hadn't read a novel in decades. Life had been too busy raising 3 kids and working as a nurse. At first, she was nervous. What if she couldn't keep up? What if the others were all younger? But she went anyway, clutching a worn copy of a mystery novel. That first meeting, she barely spoke. By the third, she was leading discussions, her eyes bright with ideas. And you're right, you don't need to. Taking care of your health in your 60s, 70s or beyond isn't about chasing perfection. It's about presence. It's about giving yourself the energy to enjoy the life you have right now. I read about a man named George, 78, who started doing chair yoga after a heart scare. He couldn't touch his toes, let alone do a downward dog, but he showed up to a free class at his community center. 6 months later, he was sleeping better. His back pain was gone, and he was laughing with new friends from the group. George didn't transform into a fitness model. He just gave his body a little love, and it gave him back a lot of life. Your body is still listening. It responds to small changes, even now. Drinking an extra glass of water, stretching for 5 minutes in the morning, or swapping one processed snack for a piece of fruit. These aren't glamorous, but they add up. They're acts of self-respect. And when you treat your body with care, something shifts inside you. You stand a little taller. You feel a quiet pride. You start making other choices from a place of strength, not defeat. So where do you start? Pick one small habit. Maybe it's walking around the block after dinner or eating a vegetable with every meal. Make it so easy you can't say no. And don't do it to live forever. Do it to live better, right now. Your body's been with you through everything. It deserves a little kindness, and so do you. The third mistake is waiting for others to fill your emptiness. This one cuts deep, especially if you've spent your life pouring love into others. Your kids, your spouse, your friends. You gave everything and now you're waiting for them to give back. You wait for phone calls that don't come, visits that get canceled, or just a moment when someone sees you, really sees you. And when it doesn't happen, it hurts. Not just because you feel lonely, but because you start to feel invisible. I remember talking to a man named Harold, 75, who'd lost his wife a few years earlier. His kids lived far away, busy with their own families. He'd sit by the phone, hoping they'd call, feeling emptier with every day that passed. One day, he got fed up. He joined a local gardening club, not because he loved plants, but because he needed to be around people. At first, he felt out of place, but then he started swapping stories with the others, sharing tips on growing tomatoes. Those strangers became friends, and Harold found something he hadn't realized he'd lost: a sense of belonging that didn't depend on his kids. Here's the hard truth: no one can be your everything. Your kids love you, but they have their own lives. Your friends care, but they're dealing with their own struggles. Waiting for them to fill your heart is like waiting for rain in a drought. It might come, but you can't count on it. You have to find your own water. That means building a life that feels full, even when no one's around. It's not about replacing your loved ones. It's about not depending on them to make you whole. Start by finding one thing that lights you up, even a little. Maybe it's volunteering at a food pantry, joining a choir, or just chatting with a neighbor. Reach out first, even if it feels awkward. And don't be afraid to enjoy your own company. Read a book, try a new recipe, or sit outside and listen to the birds. When you fill your own cup, you stop measuring your worth by who shows up. You start relating to others from a place of fullness, not need. And that changes everything. So those are the first 3 mistakes. Thinking your best days are gone, neglecting your health, and waiting for others to fill your emptiness. Each one's a quiet trap, but you can step out of it. You can choose to believe your story's still worth writing, to treat your body with kindness, and to build a life that feels rich on your own terms. Keep watching as we dive into the next 3 mistakes and how to turn them around. Your life's still yours to claim, and I'm here to walk this journey with you. Let's keep walking through this journey together, because the next 3 mistakes we're about to uncover are just as sneaky as the first. They creep into your days so quietly you might not even notice them stealing your joy until you do. These aren't mistakes that shout for attention. They whisper, settling into your habits, your thoughts, your heart. But once you see them for what they are, you can start to break free. And that's what this is all about. Not just surviving your later years, but living them with purpose, energy, and a spark that reminds you you're still here. So let's dive into the next 3 fatal mistakes and how you can turn them around, one small, brave choice at a time. The 4th mistake is holding on to resentment like it's an old friend. You know that feeling, the one that bubbles up when you think about a slight from years ago, a family member who let you down, or a friend who faded away when you needed them most. It's heavy, isn't it? Like carrying a stone in your pocket, one you've gotten so used to, you forget it's there. But every time you touch it, it pulls you back to a moment that's long gone, stealing your peace in the present. Resentment is a trap, especially as we age, because it tricks you into thinking it's protecting you. You tell yourself it's justified, that holding on to the hurt keeps you safe from being hurt again. But here's the truth. Resentment doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. I met a woman named Evelyn, 76, who hadn't spoken to her sister in over a decade. It started with a misunderstanding over their mother's care, words said in anger that neither took back. Evelyn carried that grudge like a badge of honor, but every time she talked about her sister, her face would tighten, her voice would drop. One day, she saw a photo of her sister's grandkids at a family gathering she hadn't been invited to. Instead of anger, she felt a pang of sadness. She missed her sister. So she did something radical. She wrote a letter. Not a long one, just a few lines saying she was sorry and wanted to talk. Her sister called the next week. They didn't fix everything overnight, but they started. And Evelyn? She said it was like a weight lifted, not just from her heart, but from her whole body. Letting go of resentment doesn't mean pretending the hurt didn't happen. It means choosing not to let it define you anymore. It's not about the other person deserving forgiveness. It's about you deserving peace. You don't have to call everyone who's ever wronged you. Sometimes it's enough to write it down, say it out loud to yourself, or even just decide in your heart to let it go. Start small. Think of one grudge you're carrying, maybe something small that still stings. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Then take one step. Write a note, say a prayer, or just breathe and let it slip away. You'll be amazed at how much lighter you feel when you stop carrying the past into every new day. Now, let's move to the 5th mistake. Living in a bubble of routine. There's comfort in routine, isn't there? You wake up, make your coffee, watch the same news channel, sit in the same chair, and go to bed at the same time. It feels safe, predictable, like you've got everything under control. But here's the problem. When every day looks the same, life starts to blur. You stop noticing the little things, the way the light hits the trees, the sound of kids playing down the street, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery. You're not living, you're just passing time. And over the years, that sameness can make you feel like you're fading, like the world is moving on without you. I heard about a man named Tom, 71, who realized he hadn't left his neighborhood in months. His days were a loop. Coffee, TV, nap, repeat. He wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't happy either. Then one morning, his neighbor invited him to a local history talk at the community center. Tom almost said no. His couch was calling, but he went. That talk led to a weekly walking group, then to volunteering at a museum. Tom didn't just find new things to do, he found a new way to see himself. He wasn't just an old guy in a recliner, he was someone with stories to share, someone people wanted to hear from. Breaking out of your routine doesn't mean throwing your life upside down. It's about adding a pinch of newness, something to wake your senses. Maybe it's taking a different route on your walk, trying a new recipe, or listening to a podcast instead of the same old radio station. These tiny shifts remind your brain that life isn't over. It's still full of surprises. Start with one change this week. Maybe visit a park you've never been to, or call someone you haven't talked to in a while. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be different. Because when you break the bubble, you let life back in. The sixth mistake is thinking you don't need new connections anymore. As we age, our social circles shrink. Friends move away, some pass on, family gets busy. It's natural, but it's easy to fall into the trap of believing you don't need anyone new. You tell yourself, "I've got my family," or "I'm fine on my own." But deep down, you feel it. That ache for someone to laugh with, to share a story with, to just sit with and feel seen. Humans are wired for connection, no matter how old we get. And when we close ourselves off to new people, we're not just saying no to them, we're saying no to ourselves. I remember a story about Rose, an 80, who moved to a new town after her husband died. She didn't know a soul, and for months she kept to herself, thinking she was too old to start over. But one day, she overheard a group at the local coffee shop talking about a knitting club. Rose had knitted in her 20s but hadn't picked up needles in decades. She showed up to the club, nervous as a teenager. At first, she just listened. Then she started sharing tips on stitches, stories about her life. Those women became her lifeline, not just because they knit together, but because they reminded her she still had something to offer. Making new connections doesn't mean you need a dozen best friends. It's about opening the door to one new person, one new conversation. Maybe it's joining a group at your church, signing up for a class, or just smiling at someone at the grocery store. It feels risky, sure. Rejection stings at any age. But every time you reach out, you're saying, "I'm still here, and I'm worth knowing." And you are. Try this. This week, strike up a conversation with someone new. It could be a neighbor, a volunteer at an event, or even someone online in a forum about something you love. You don't need to be anyone but yourself. Connection isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Those are the next 3 mistakes: clinging to resentment, living in a routine bubble, and closing yourself off to new connections. Each one's a quiet way we let life slip away. But you can change that. You can choose to let go of old hurts, shake up your days with something new, and open your heart to someone who might just surprise you. Keep watching as we dive into the final 3 mistakes and how to step into a life that feels full, vibrant, and yours. We're in the final stretch now, and I'm so glad you're still here with me. We've already uncovered 6 mistakes that can quietly steal the richness from your later years, but the last 3 are just as critical. These are the ones that settle into your bones when you're not looking, making you feel like life is something that happens to other people. They're not loud or dramatic. They're the soft whispers that convince you to settle for less than you deserve. But here's the beautiful truth. You can rewrite those whispers. You can choose to live with intention, to reclaim the joy and dignity that are still yours. Let's dive into the final 3 fatal mistakes and how you can step away from them, starting right now, with small, meaningful choices that bring your life back into focus. The 7th mistake is letting fear of failure stop you from trying. There's a moment that creeps up as we age when the idea of trying something new feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. Maybe it's learning a new skill, like using that smartphone everyone's always talking about, or signing up for a dance class despite creaky joints. You think, what if I mess up? What if I look foolish? I'm too old to start over. And so, you don't. You stay safe, sticking to what you know, because the thought of failing feels worse than the thought of missing out. But let me tell you something. Failure isn't the enemy. Not trying is. When you let fear keep you from stepping forward, you're not just avoiding mistakes. You're avoiding growth, joy, even the chance to surprise yourself. I heard about a man named Walter, 83, who always wanted to paint but never picked up a brush because he thought he'd be terrible. His daughter bought him a beginner's watercolor set for his birthday, and he let it sit in a drawer for months, convinced he'd ruin the paper. One rainy afternoon, bored and restless, he finally tried. His first painting was a mess, colors bleeding, lines shaky, but he kept going, watching YouTube tutorials and practicing. A year later, he gifted his daughter a painting of her childhood home. It wasn't perfect, but it brought tears to her eyes. Walter didn't just learn to paint. He learned he was still capable of creating something beautiful, something new. Failure doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're alive, still stretching, still learning. At 60, 70, or 80, you don't need to be a master at anything. You just need to be willing to try. That's where the magic happens. In the messy, imperfect moments when you're brave enough to start. So, pick one thing you've been curious about, something you've told yourself you're too old for. Maybe it's downloading an app, writing a poem, or planting a garden. Start small. 5 minutes, one step. Let yourself be a beginner. The only real failure is believing you have nothing left to learn. Now, let's talk about the 8th mistake, neglecting your spirit because life feels too heavy. There's a quiet ache that shows up sometimes, one that's deeper than loneliness or boredom. It's the feeling that you've lost touch with something bigger, whether it's faith, meaning, or just a sense of wonder. Maybe you used to pray every morning, sit quietly in a garden, or feel connected to the world through music or stories. But life got hard, loss, illness, disappointment, and that connection slipped away. You didn't mean to let it go, it just happened. You told yourself you didn't have time, or maybe you stopped believing it mattered. But here's the thing, your spirit is still there, waiting for you to come back. And when you neglect it, you're not just missing out on comfort, you're missing out on a part of yourself that makes life feel whole. I met a woman named Margaret, 79, who hadn't been to church in years after losing her husband. She wasn't angry at her faith, she just felt numb, like God had gone quiet. One day, she started sitting on her porch every evening, watching the sunset. She didn't pray or meditate, she just sat, listening to the wind, noticing the colors in the sky. Slowly, she started feeling something again, a sense of peace she thought she'd lost. She began writing letters to her husband in a journal, not to send, but to feel close to him. Those moments on the porch, those words on the page, became her way back to her spirit. They reminded her she was still part of something bigger than her pain. Reconnecting with your spirit doesn't mean you need a church or a set of rules. It's about finding what makes you feel grounded, alive, connected. Maybe it's sitting in silence, reading poetry, volunteering, or even talking to someone you love about what matters to you. Start with one moment a day. Light a candle, take a walk without your phone, or write down one thing you're grateful for. These aren't big gestures, but they're powerful. They're a way of saying, I'm still here and I still matter. Your spirit hasn't given up on you. Don't give up on it. The 9th mistake is believing your purpose is gone. This one's the quietest of all, but it's also the most dangerous. It's the belief that because you're older, your role in the world is over. You've raised your kids, finished your career, checked the big boxes. So you think, what's left for me? You stop looking for ways to contribute, to matter, to leave a mark. And slowly, life starts to feel like it's winding down, like you're just waiting for the credits to roll. But here's the truth. Purpose doesn't retire. It changes, sure, but it's still there, waiting for you to claim it. I know a man named Sam, 85, who thought his days of making a difference were over after he retired from teaching. He spent years feeling aimless, like he was just taking up space. Then he started reading to kids at the local library. It wasn't a grand plan, just an hour a week, sharing stories he loved. But those kids looked at him like he was a superhero. Their parents thanked him, saying he made reading fun. Sam found a new purpose, not in being the best teacher, but in being a spark for someone else. He said it made him feel like he was still part of the world, not just watching it pass by. Purpose doesn't have to be big. It can be as simple as helping a neighbor, sharing your wisdom, or planting flowers that someone else will enjoy. It's about showing up, even in small ways, and saying, I still have something to give. Ask yourself, what do I love? What do I know that could help someone? Maybe it's telling your grandkids stories about your life, volunteering at a shelter, or just being kind to someone who needs it. Purpose is about connection, not achievement. And as long as you're breathing, you've got something to offer. So there they are, the 9 fatal mistakes. Thinking your best days are behind you, neglecting your health, waiting for others to fill your emptiness, holding on to resentment, living in a routine bubble, closing yourself off to new connections, letting fear stop you, neglecting your spirit, and believing your purpose is gone. Each one's a quiet thief, but you can stop them. You can choose to try something new. Care for your body, let go of old hurts, and find meaning in this moment. It's not about erasing the past. It's about stepping fully into the life you have now. I want you to know this. You've carried so much, loved so much, survived so much. You're not done. Your story is still being written, and the pen is in your hands. Take one step today. Maybe it's a walk, a phone call, a moment of gratitude. Whatever it is, make it yours. And if something in this video spoke to you, share it in the comments below. Your story might just be the spark someone else needs. If you found this helpful, give the video a like and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. We're in this together, and I'm rooting for you. Here's to living your best life at any age.